He who does not speak controls the conversation. Stoic wisdom. My friends, they told you silence was weakness, that if you don't explain yourself, you're being rude, that if you don't respond, you're immature. But let me ask you, who made up those rules? The people who disrespected you in the first place. Truth is, the strongest move you can make is no move at all. No text, no speech, no apology. Just quiet, clean, sharp, and unforgettable. Not because you're cold, but because you've finally stopped trying to water a plant that never grew. Because it was never soil, just concrete. Before we go deeper, do something powerful for your future self. If you've ever had to walk away silently to protect your peace, hit that like button and subscribe right now. This space, it's for the calm ones, the clear ones, the ones who stopped performing for people who only clapped when it suited them. Hey folks, imagine this. You're a fire, burning bright, warm, inviting. But some people, they don't sit beside your fire to stay warm. No, they come close just to roast their own marshmallows, then walk off into the night, never once thanking the flame, never once protecting it from the wind. Until one day, you go out, not with a scream, but with silence. And suddenly, it's cold. Now they're shivering in the same space they once took for granted, wondering why the warmth is gone. But you didn't vanish. You just stopped burning for people who never brought wood. That's what this is about. You didn't leave because you wanted to hurt them. You left because staying started to hurt you. You were tired of always having to explain, to defend, to prove your worth to people who couldn't see past their own ego. They thought your love was a subscription, monthly, automatic, no questions asked, but you cancelled it quietly, no warning email, just gone. Here's the part they never tell you. Disappearing isn't weak. It's the kind of strength that doesn't need witnesses. Because when you finally walk away without saying a word, you're not ghosting. You're growing. You're choosing clarity over confusion, peace over performance, dignity over discussion. They expected drama, tears, yelling, one last "let me explain." But instead, you gave them nothing, and that nothing, that's what echoes. We've been lied to, my friends, fed this idea that love means staying, that kindness means explaining, that maturity means always giving people closure. But sometimes the most mature thing you can do is to disappear without a word. Why? Because the kind of people who need you to spell out why they lost you are the same ones who never listened while they had you. There's a power in stillness, in not defending yourself, in letting your absence become the explanation. And when they start to feel it, not immediately, but slowly, deeply, when life gets quiet and they notice you're not in it anymore, that's when your silence speaks louder than anything you could have screamed. You didn't slam the door. You didn't light their world on fire. You just removed your energy and left them in the dark with their own reflection. So if you've done this, if you've ever walked away not to punish, but to protect yourself, then I want you to write this in the comments right now. I protect my peace. Say it with strength. Let it be your reminder. And remember, this isn't bitterness. This is wisdom. This is the moment where you stop chasing and start choosing yourself. Stay with me, because in the next moment of silence, they'll start hearing everything they ignored. Let's go deeper. Number 1, silence is the final word. Never waste your words on people who only hear what they want. Say nothing and let the silence haunt them. My friends, there comes a point where the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. No closure, no last text, no dramatic finale, just silence. Not the kind that begs to be noticed, but the kind that hits harder because it doesn't ask for attention. The kind that lingers like a ghost, quiet, cold, unforgettable. Imagine this. You're a lighthouse. You've stood firm through every storm, shining, guiding, always there, no matter how wild the waves. But the ship, it keeps ignoring your light, keeps crashing into rocks, keeps blaming the sea instead of steering with sense. And one night, you decide to switch the light off. Not because you're bitter, but because what's the point of guiding someone who never looked up? That's what silence is. Not surrender, not spite, but survival. Your final message, carved in stillness. But let's be honest. It's hard, isn't it? That moment where you feel the urge to reply, to explain, to just say something. That voice in your head whispers, what if they don't get it? What if they think I never cared? What if they move on and forget me? What if my silence means nothing? That fear, that doubt, it creeps in like smoke under a locked door, makes you question your worth, makes you feel like you're being cruel, like maybe if you just said one more thing, one more paragraph, they'd understand. But let me break something for you. They understood. They just didn't care. Because people don't miss words. They miss presence. They miss peace. They miss energy. And the second you take that away, not with a storm, but with stillness, they start to feel what they refuse to see. But here's the trap. The lie we've all been fed. We've been told that silence is weakness, that if you don't defend yourself, you're guilty, that if you don't explain, you're cold, that disappearing makes you the villain. Let me tell you something that most people won't. You don't owe an explanation for walking out of the fire you were set on. You're not required to be the narrator of someone else's guilt. You are not the cleanup crew for someone else's chaos. You are not the teacher, the translator, or the therapist in someone's emotional mess. Sometimes you're just done. And when you're done, you don't scream, you don't write novels, you vanish. And that disappearance, that's the loudest message you'll ever send. It's hard, yes, because silence doesn't just test them, it tests you. It tests your patience. It tests your emotional discipline. It stirs up every part of you that still wants to be heard, still wants to be validated. But the Stoics had it right. True strength isn't loud. It's composed. It's calm. It doesn't seek the last word. It simply walks away, knowing it never needed one to begin with. And let's not forget, they're expecting you to speak. That's the part that messes with them the most. They're ready for your reaction. They want your explanation, your meltdown, your "look what you've done to me" moment. They've seen that version of you before. But now, you've gone still. Now, there's nothing to grab onto. And people fear what they can't read. They fear silence because it holds up a mirror and they can't blame the reflection. You don't just disappear from their phone. You disappear from their control. You step out of the cycle, the push and pull, the chase and retreat, the game that always leaves you drained. And suddenly, they're alone on that battlefield, swinging at shadows, trying to find the version of you that used to respond. But that version, she's gone. He's healed. They've evolved. Let me drop this on you. Your silence is not the absence of communication. It's the beginning of your clarity. Because when you stop speaking, what you're really saying is this: I no longer need your validation to feel whole. I no longer care to convince you of what you were too blind to see. I no longer choose to stand where I'm not valued. You didn't go silent because you lost your voice. You went silent because you finally found your power. And trust me, they feel it. Not always right away. Sometimes it takes days, sometimes it takes months, but it will hit them. In the quiet moments, in the late nights, in the routines where your voice used to be. And when it does, they'll hear everything you never said, and it'll echo louder than anything you ever could have. So, if you're in that place right now, sitting in your silence, holding your line, resisting the urge to break, stand tall. You're not losing, you're leveling up. You're not being passive, you're being precise. You're not giving up. You're finally giving nothing. Because silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the calm that breaks the cycle, the absence that teaches the lesson, the quiet that shakes their ego to the core. So I want you to do this for yourself, for your growth, for your peace, for every time you over-explain to someone who never deserved it. Go to the comments right now and write, "My silence is my message." Say it, show it, type it, not just for them to see, but for you to believe. Let it be your reminder, your anchor, your quiet declaration to the world. And stay with me, my friend, because what comes next? That silence they once ignored, it starts eating them alive. Number 2, their ego expects noise. You gave them stillness. The insecure crave noise, not for clarity, but to drown out their own guilt. My friends, let's make one thing clear. The ego doesn't feed on truth. It feeds on reaction. It feeds on your pain, your confusion, your attention. When someone disrespects you, when they push your buttons, when they play their little mind games, it's not random. It's tactical. They're hoping you'll crack, that you'll lash out, that you'll send the long message, that you'll call them out, cry, beg, scream. Anything to show them you're still hooked. Because the moment you react, they know they still have you. But the second you go still, the second you vanish into calm silence, they panic. Why? Because silence breaks the script. Their whole game relies on your energy. You're not supposed to be quiet. You're supposed to fight for the connection. Defend yourself. Prove your side. Show up. Again. So when you don't, when you disappear, that's not just unexpected. That's devastating. You see, insecure people don't want resolution. They want control. And control doesn't need peace. It just needs you to stay on the stage, arguing, explaining, performing. But when you go still, you burn the whole stage down. Let's talk about stillness, folks. Stillness isn't passive. It's not weak. It's deliberate. Think of a lion. The most dangerous moment isn't when it roars. It's when it stops moving, when it locks eyes, crouches, waits. That stillness, that's where the real power lives. Not in noise, not in chaos, in controlled presence. Your silence makes them nervous not because you're gone, but because now they don't know what you're thinking. And nothing terrifies a manipulative ego more than uncertainty. They're used to having a leash on you. They knew how to trigger you, which words to say, which buttons to push. They were predictable in their toxicity. And you were predictable in your reactions. But now you've flipped the game. Now you're unreadable, unreachable, untouchable. And that's the twist they didn't expect. When you become quiet, they have no choice but to hear themselves. And let me tell you something, my friend. They hate hearing themselves. They hate the sound of their own guilt, the echo of their own behavior, the truth ringing in the silence you left behind. Because as long as you were reacting, they could pretend it was mutual chaos. Two people arguing, two people fighting, two people hurting. But when you go silent, suddenly it's just them. And it's hard to blame someone who's no longer even in the room. This is why stillness is terrifying to the insecure, because it creates a mirror, and without your words distracting them, without your energy softening the impact, they're left alone with their own reflection. And that reflection, it's ugly, it's uncomfortable, it's the truth they've been avoiding through noise. And here's where your power multiplies. Because this silence, it's not about punishment, it's about preservation. You didn't go quiet to prove a point. You went quiet to protect your peace, to heal your mind, to reclaim your energy. They call it ghosting. You call it growth. They say you're being cold. You say you're being clear. They say, just talk it out. But they never listened when you did. And the wild part is, this silence. It will be remembered more than anything you could have said, because words fade. But the stillness that follows disrespect, that hits different. It makes them replay every moment, every message, every lie they thought they got away with. Now there's no distraction, just echoes. And you rise, not with noise, not with confrontation, but with calm, clean distance. So let the insecure spin their stories. Let them wonder, why did they just vanish? Let them reach out with half-hearted attempts to regain control. Let them stare at their phone waiting for a notification that never comes, because you're not reacting, you're rising. Not above them, but above the level you used to meet them on. So, if you're in that place right now, holding back the text, resisting the urge to explain, choosing stillness over struggle, then you're not weak, you're not heartless, you're strong, you're growing, you're becoming powerful in your silence. And I want you to own that right now. Go to the comments and write, I don't react, I rise. Say it for the old version of you who used to beg. Say it for the healed version of you that's coming alive in the quiet. Say it for the people who underestimated your ability to walk away with peace in your pocket. And stay with me, my friend. Because next, that silence you gave them, it doesn't just disturb their ego. It starts destroying their illusion of control. Number 3, no explanation is the most powerful explanation. Your silence isn't confusion, it's clarity they're not ready for. My friends, people say they want closure, that they want honesty, that they want to know why. But let's be real, most of the time, what they actually want is another chance to twist your truth, flip the narrative, and pull you back into a conversation you've already outgrown. They don't want your explanation, they want your energy. Because the more you explain, the more they manipulate. The more you justify, the more they gaslight. The more you give, the more they take and twist. You're not clarifying things, you're feeding them rope. They ask you for a reason, but deep down, they don't want a real one. Because if you told them the truth, that they drained you, dismissed you, disrespected you, that your silence is the result of their carelessness, it would crush the image they've built of themselves, the one where they were innocent, where you were the one who just disappeared. They want the story where they're the victim, and you're the cold one who ghosted without a word. And if you speak, if you explain, they get to keep playing that role. But when you stay silent, you take the script from their hands and set it on fire. You leave them with one thing, and it's not closure. It's a mirror, and let me tell you, people who refuse to change fear mirrors, because mirrors don't lie, they reflect. And silence? It's the cleanest mirror there is. Think about it. Have you ever tried to explain your pain to someone who made you feel like you were overreacting? Have you ever opened up your heart only to have it dissected, doubted, or dismissed? That's not communication. That's psychological warfare. And every time you go back to explain, they tighten the leash, because now they know your emotions still orbit around them. You're still waiting to be understood by someone who never really heard you to begin with. That's why the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing. No closure. No, just so you know. No, I just need to get this off my chest. You don't need to gift them with clarity they didn't earn, because here's the hard truth. If they didn't listen while they had access to your voice, they don't deserve to hear your goodbye. And I know it's not easy. We're human. We crave resolution. We want to tie the bow, end the chapter, walk away with a clean emotional slate. We want them to get it, to have that light bulb moment, to finally say, I understand. But what if I told you that moment isn't yours to deliver? What if your growth is not about being understood, but about understanding yourself enough to walk away without needing applause? You are not a lesson to teach. You are a standard to remember. Let them wonder. Let them sit with it. Let them hear the silence where your words used to be and question everything they thought they knew about you. Because silence, it hits different when they were used to hearing your voice. And now, it's gone. No answer is still an answer. And often, it's the only one that leaves them thinking. They'll reread your last message, rewatch old stories, go through pictures like archaeologists searching for signs. But they'll find nothing. Just air. Just the void you left behind. Because your absence is the consequence. Your silence is the story. And you've moved from proving to preserving. So if you've reached that place where you're done explaining your worth, done performing your pain, done breaking yourself into pieces just so someone else can feel whole, then it's time to stand tall in that silence. Right now, go to the comments and write this with your whole chest. I owe no one an explanation for my growth. Say it for the version of you who used to beg to be understood. Say it for the healed one who now understands themselves. Say it for everyone who tried to pull a reason out of you, not because they cared, but because they feared losing control. And stay with me, because what comes next? They thought silence was temporary, but soon they'll realize it's permanent. Number 4, you don't chase, you choose peace. When you stop chasing, you stop bleeding. My friends, they'll say you gave up, that you changed, that you vanished without trying. But here's the truth they won't speak out loud. You didn't leave because you stopped caring. You left because you finally started caring about yourself. You got tired of leaking your energy into a bottomless pit, of handing out second chances like candy, of showing up for people who only noticed you when they were bored, lonely, or in need of a quick ego boost. And every time you stayed, you shrunk a little more. Every time you gave, you lost a little more of yourself. Not all at once, but drop by drop, silent, subtle, exhausting. So one day, you stop. You don't make a scene. You don't explain. You don't even say goodbye. You just choose peace over participation. And that choice, it's not heartless. It's healing. It's sacred. It's the first time in a long time that you've finally said, my sanity matters more than your comfort. You see, the world conditions us to chase, to fix, to be the bigger person, to hold space for people who empty us. But chasing doesn't make you strong. It makes you tired. It convinces you that love is a pursuit, not a peace. But real love doesn't require you to chase. Real connection doesn't make you prove your worth like it's a contest. When someone truly values your presence, they meet you there. They don't breadcrumb you. They don't keep you on a shelf collecting dust until it's convenient. They show up, consistently, fully, with respect. And if they don't, then your absence is the message they didn't want to receive. Let those who don't value your presence feel your absence. Because that's when it hits, not when you're shouting, not when you're explaining, but when your energy goes missing, when the one who always cared suddenly stops checking, when the one who kept the peace finally stops fighting. That's when they realize they were never entitled to your light. But let's talk about why this is hard, because it is, especially when you're someone who loves deeply, who wants to believe the best, who always thinks, maybe if I give it just one more try. That hope, that's beautiful, but sometimes it turns into a trap, a loop, where you give and give and give, and they take, and then blame you when the well runs dry. Choosing peace over chaos doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise. You're wise enough to know when a connection is no longer aligned, wise enough to understand that not everyone deserves front-row access to your heart, and strong enough to walk away, not because you're cold, but because you're done melting for people who never warmed up to your value. It's not abandonment, it's alignment. It's realizing that your peace is not negotiable, that your energy is not a free-for-all, that your worth is not something to be argued over. You walk away not to hurt them, but to heal you. And if they didn't see the beauty in your presence, they'll feel the depth of your absence. That silence you gave them. It's louder than every conversation they ignored. And you? You're no longer trying to fix people who break you. You're no longer pouring into cups that drain you. You're no longer chasing someone who made you question if you were ever enough. Because now you know better. You know that peace isn't something you find in another person. It's something you create when you stop giving your energy to chaos. So if you've reached that place where you stopped chasing, stopped explaining, stopped fighting to be seen, then you are not giving up. You are rising up. You are protecting your peace. And I want you to say it with me. Say it loud. Say it proud. Say it for the version of you that kept running after people who only ran from you. Go to the comments right now and write, I don't chase, I protect my peace. Let it be your reminder, your boundary, your battle cry, not for revenge, but for rest, for clarity, for the love you now reserve for yourself. And stay with me because next, that peace you chose, it becomes the silence they can't forget. Number 5. Let absence speak what words never could. You don't have to shout to be heard. Sometimes disappearing says everything. My friends, when someone takes your presence for granted, they don't feel the loss all at once. It's not a loud crash. It's a slow unraveling, a quiet echo that creeps in through the cracks of their daily life. They won't admit it, not right away, but trust me, your absence is doing the talking. You see, your presence was a gift, your energy, your patience, your consistent care. It was all a form of emotional shelter. You were the calm in their chaos, the warmth in their winter, the one who remembered the little things they always forgot. But here's the thing. People don't appreciate the sun when they think it'll rise forever. They don't thank the air until it's gone. And one day, without warning, the sun doesn't rise. The air goes still. And they finally notice what they thought would always be there is gone. That's the power of absence. It doesn't scream. It doesn't demand. It just removes itself. Gently. Completely. And what it leaves behind? A mirror. One they didn't expect. One they can't unsee. They'll stare into it, trying to find the version of you they ignored. They'll replay the last things you said, the last look you gave, the last text they left unread. They'll scroll through old messages like archaeologists searching for meaning in bones they buried. But it won't hit during the arguments. It won't hit when they're loud and surrounded. It hits in the quiet. It hits when their phone doesn't light up at 9 a.m. anymore. It hits when they make coffee and realize there's no message waiting from you. It hits when that one song plays, and you're not there to sing along, or smile, or say, "Remember this." That's when it sinks in. You didn't leave a hole, they built their comfort around you. And now that you're gone, it's them who feel displaced. And here's what they won't say out loud. They expected you to come back. They thought your silence was just a tactic, that you'd flinch, that you'd fold, that you'd break the silence first, because you always did. But this time, nothing, just stillness. And that stillness, it haunts them. Because you're no longer just a person, they start to realize. You were peace, you were presence, you were the part of their day that felt right, even when they didn't say it out loud. And now, it's gone. When presence was taken for granted, absence becomes unforgettable. They try to replace it with distractions, maybe a new conversation, maybe a rebound, maybe a playlist full of noise to block out the silence, but nothing fits. Because presence can't be copied. You can't fake you. And they'll never find that version of peace again. Not because you're impossible to replace, but because they didn't even know what they had while they had it. And absence. Absence doesn't just remove your voice, it highlights everything they refuse to see. But let's keep it real. It wasn't always easy for you. There were moments you wanted to reach out, to check in, to remind them of your worth. But you didn't, because you knew, if you have to remind someone of your value, they've already forgotten it. You chose to let the silence speak. You chose to walk away and let the void do the explaining. You chose to trust that your absence would echo longer than any argument you could have had. And you were right, because while they were ignoring your presence, they were building a relationship with your absence, one they'll never escape. So if you've walked away and you've stayed gone, not to punish, but to protect yourself, I want you to write this in the comments right now. My absence is my power. Say it for the version of you that stayed too long. Say it for the healed version of you who now understands. You don't have to explain your worth. You just have to stop showing up where it isn't seen. Let it be your reminder, your power, your boundary. And stay with me, my friend, because what's coming next? They'll realize your absence wasn't revenge. It was evolution. Number 6, your exit. Wasn't a game, it was growth. When the old version of you no longer fits the room, leave the room. My friends, let them talk. Let them twist the story. Let them say, you ghosted. Let them say, you switched up. Let them say, you changed. Because they're not wrong, you did change. You grew. And your growth, it didn't happen in noise, it happened in silence, in solitude, in that quiet moment where you finally realized, I can't keep shrinking myself to make someone else feel tall. That was the moment your exit began, not with a plan, not with a dramatic scene, but with a soft, powerful no more. You didn't leave to prove a point. You didn't go silent to spark curiosity. You weren't playing games. You left because your growth no longer fit inside the small version of yourself that kept tolerating disrespect, waiting on breadcrumbs and calling it love. And let's be honest, they didn't expect you to evolve. They were counting on the old you, the one who stayed, the one who gave chance after chance, the one who made excuses for their behavior while quietly breaking inside. But that version of you, dead and buried, replaced by someone who no longer begs to be chosen. And now they don't know what to do with this version of you, the version that doesn't reach out, doesn't react, doesn't play their game. So they slap a label on your silence. They ghosted me. No, my friend, you healed. You didn't disappear to punish them. You disappeared to protect the part of you that finally said, "This is not love. This is emotional chaos dressed in fake affection." They'll say, "You gave up too fast." You'll say, "I held on for too long." They'll say, "You changed." You'll say, "Thank God I did." You see, they were comfortable with the version of you who tolerated the bare minimum, the one who filled in every gap, forgave every silent treatment, showed up even when they didn't ask you to. They liked the version of you that needed them. But your healing, it made you realize you were never the one who needed fixing. You didn't disappear. You elevated. Let that sink in. You elevated above the patterns. You elevated beyond the pain. You elevated out of a dynamic that was draining your soul while you kept calling it love just to survive it. And no, they won't understand it, because people who live in chaos mistake peace for abandonment. They mistake your boundaries for betrayal. They mistake your silence for immaturity. Let them, because this version of you, this version doesn't need to explain anything. This version simply walks in truth and lets the rest fall where it may. This version understands that growth is rarely recognized by the people you outgrow. And I know it's hard. It's hard to leave without closure. Hard to detach from someone you once built dreams with. Hard to walk away from what you wanted to work. But it's harder to keep losing yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. That's not growth. That's emotional decay. And you, my friend, chose differently. You chose to evolve. You chose to protect your peace. You chose yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a sacred one. So if you've made that decision, if you've outgrown the noise, the lies, the on and off energy, and stepped into your growth without a word, I want you to type this in the comments right now. I outgrew the chaos they confused with love. Say it for your old self. Say it for your healed self. Say it for every soul out there still stuck in rooms that feel like cages. Because you didn't walk away for attention. You walked away for ascension. And stay with me, because what comes next? They thought you left them behind. But really, you left to find yourself. Number 7, they wanted drama. You gave them distance. If they need chaos to feel seen, your peace will feel like punishment. My friends, they wanted a show. They wanted the drama, the shouting, the long texts, the emotional explosions. Because that's how they stay in control, by keeping you reactive, by pulling you into their chaos and calling it connection. But you didn't take the bait. You didn't scream. You didn't slam doors. You just walked away. And that's what shattered them. They were expecting a fight. You gave them silence. They wanted war. You gave them distance. They wanted to trigger you. You gave them nothing, and nothing hits harder than someone who stops playing the game. They thrived on tension, arguments, confusion, manipulation. That was their oxygen, their power source. And every time you tried to explain yourself, to fix things, to bring peace, they pulled you back into the fire. Because if they can keep you emotional, they can keep you attached. But the moment you chose calm over chaos, the moment you stopped answering nonsense with energy, you took away their audience, and now they're performing for silence. Let's be real. Some people aren't looking for peace. They're looking for a reaction, because if you react, you're still engaged. If you argue, you still care. If you scream, they still have access. That's why they poke. That's why they push. That's why they twist every word and make you question your sanity. Because deep down, they know. The moment you stop responding, the moment you stop showing up for their show, it's over. And you, my friend, walked out of the theater and never looked back. You stopped letting their dysfunction become your job to fix. You stopped explaining your boundaries like they were optional. You stopped watering dead soil and calling it effort. They wanted noise. You gave them nothing. And that distance, it's driving them mad, because now they're trapped in a play with no audience, rehearsing old lines, repeating the same tricks, posting the cryptic stories, sending the bait texts, all hoping for just one thing, that you'll break the silence, but you don't. Because you've seen the pattern, you've felt the loop. You know that drama doesn't lead to resolution. It leads to exhaustion, and you're done performing. Don't wrestle with pigs. You both get dirty, and the pig likes it. You've finally realized your peace is more powerful than their chaos. You don't have to yell to be heard. You don't have to argue to be right. You don't have to explain why you left. You just leave, with dignity, with calm, with power. And now they're sitting in the silence you left behind, trying to create noise loud enough to bring you back. But noise can't compete with peace, and games can't survive without players. So let them play by themselves. Let them spiral in their own performance. Let them call you cold. Let them say you gave up. Let them say whatever makes them feel less shaken by your absence. You don't need to correct their story, because anyone who truly knows your heart already knows why you left. So if you've made that move, if you walked away without giving them what they expected, if you replaced their tension with your stillness, their chaos with your calm, then I want you to drop this in the comments right now. I don't do drama, I do distance. Say it for your peace. Say it for your healing. Say it for every time you almost stepped back into a storm that wasn't yours to manage, because your distance is not cruelty, it's clarity. And stay with me, because what's coming next? They thought they were hurting you with silence, but now they see. It was never silence, it was strategy. Number 8, disappearing. Wasn't the end, it was the evolution. Sometimes disappearing is not escape, it's ascension. My friends, when you disappeared, they thought it was the end of the story. But the truth is, that was your beginning. You didn't vanish out of bitterness. You vanished into your rebirth. You didn't quit. You woke up. You finally realized you were outgrowing the version of you that kept settling for less, explaining too much, and staying too long. They'll tell it wrong, of course. They'll say you ghosted, that you couldn't handle it, that you gave up. But they'll never tell the part where you were the one who loved, who gave, who tried. Because the part where you chose yourself instead, that's the part that scares them. You disappeared not to hide, but to rise. Because your evolution demanded isolation. It demanded stillness. And now, you're no longer available to the chaos you once called love. So if you've stepped into that new chapter, if you've gone silent not to escape, but to elevate, I want you to write this in the comments. I've evolved beyond the version of me that stayed. Say it loud. Say it proud. Because your silence wasn't your ending. It was your becoming. And so, my friends, here's the truth. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. You didn't disappear to play games. You disappeared to grow, to protect your peace, to finally choose yourself. And if they didn't appreciate your presence, then let your absence do the talking. If this message hit something real inside you, hit that like button, subscribe for more powerful content like this, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And before you go, drop it in the comments right now. My silence was my strength. Until next time, stay calm, stay powerful, and stay rising.